Skills. I love skills. Now,
Is that a present?
it's not a present, but I wanted to kind of like show you a picture of this. I'm a big fan of assessments, but assessments um, have really messed people up in a lot of ways. And I'm Myers Briggs certified. I love learning around these things and teaching it. But what I've realized is what a lot of people do when they take an assessment is they'll take the assessment and they want the assessment to tell them who they are. And so they'll hold on to their letters or numbers or whatever there is and say, this is me. Which I don't love that. One, because it's lazy. Assessments are really a discovery tool. It's we have all these emotions and these thoughts and things that we're processing and we're trying to figure it out. An assessment, all it's trying to do is to make sense of that. And to be able to take that assessment and say, all right, here it is, it's like one, that's lazy thinking, but two, you're minimizing yourself. That people are so much more than assessments. I love skill building because I know it helps people reach their potential, but I've had probably the hardest time helping people build skills because they're like, this is my skill set. Here's what I got. And everything outside of it is challenging. Now, if there's a skill that fits in it, they're like, I can work on that. But once it steps out of the box, it can be challenging to step into it. And so I almost want to, I don't know where you are, so I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. But if there is any sense of, this is what I'm good at. Here's where I'm at. This is my comfort zone. I'm just letting you know we're going to break that box. The challenge of building skills that you're not even used to, similar to how you're talking about like the questions you're asking around listening, we are going to hammer that and hammer it and hammer it and hammer it to where it's almost going to feel like, what the heck are we doing? But that's a little bit what it takes to build skills because I don't want you to get to a place where you're just knowledgeable about something. I want you to get depth in certain skills. So you're going to let me know, here are the skills I want to focus on. And I just want to pre-warn you, when we start focusing on a skill, we are really going to focus on it. That doesn't mean I'm just going to say, read this book. Let me know how it is. That also doesn't mean that it's going to be like, hey, try this course. I saw this free course online. Learn this skill. I'm not just going to do that. We're going to pick habits. I say this and I'll say it a lot. There is no skill building without habit building. If you want to go deep in a skill, you need to build habits that really show that skill even more. Build habits that support these skills and to help you build it. And so anything that you work on is going to be depth. It's going to be deeper. You're going to really work on it and learn it. And I don't want you just to get a broad knowledge of things. I want you to get skilled in areas. I want to see you become more masterful in specific areas. Let me pause for a second. Thoughts on that? How are you receiving what I'm saying right now?
So I think a couple of things. The first thing, and when you keep talking about skill building, and then I took that assessment, I was so confused what you're even talking about with skills. And then you mentioned Myers-Briggs, and everything you said, by the way, I'm INTJ, big D, little c. It stuck with me, but the fact that we're talking about skills and personality clicks. Like, it's awesome. And I think that's really important from a leadership perspective too. It aligns perfectly. But I'll tell you, last night I was like, what does he mean by skills? um, and just on the assessment too, I can't tell you, and it reminds me too, when you mentioned Myers-Briggs, because like the hardest, easiest test you'll ever take, right? Like having to think about an absolute, like when am I always or never? Most of the time I'm everything. But I'm really excited to just hear kind of like where you're at with all this and what I want to know my results are.
Sure. We're going to get there. And I wanted to talk about this first.
What's in the box?
There's nothing in the box. But I want you to be able to see this as like, okay, you are coming to the table with some unique and distinct skills. And when we're talking about skills, this assessment is all around your leader skills. So it focuses on 20 different leader skills. one on the 10 on the self leadership side, and then 20 on what I'm calling the servant leadership side. So 20 different skills that you're really focusing around, but you have a leaning towards towards certain things. And I want you to know that you took the assessment. So though you may have certain results, you still took the assessment. So there might be specific reasons why you answered things the way you answered it. There might be things that you answered that you may not be as good at that as you think you are. And that's why when I say we're going to really dive into this assessment is going to be like, here's your score. You're like, great, I'm this. Never, ever will I ever say that or do that. The assessment is a starting point. It's just discovery. It's bringing together all the things that you just answered in those 113 questions to make sense of it. That's discovery. Now the real work begins. So I want you to have that mentality because you're going to not fact check it, but we're going to see, based upon the data we have, is this true? So it's not going to be, well, I answered this, so it's true. No, no, no. You're going to actually have homework to really dive in and say, do I understand this skill as much as I do? Do I understand the questions that I answered as much as I do? And that is a problem. Sometimes we see a question or we see a skill, we're like, I'm good at that, but we're really not that good at it because we don't really understand the depth of that skill. And that's why I wanted to do a skill assessment so that when people see stuff like strategic agility, they're not just like, yeah, that's me. I'm like, well, help me unpack. What does it mean to be strategic? How do you have agility when you're being strategic? And so if someone can't answer that, then I'm say probably it may not be a skill. You may have some knowledge of it, but it may not be a skill. So that's why I want to help you discover. So as we go through this, there's going to be 20 skills where you have a knowledge base of what they are, and then you're going to slowly start to build into it.
Cool.
Now, the reason why I wanted to do this, who you are, who you want to be beforehand, is because I wanted to make sure that the skills that you're choosing to work on aren't just skills you're like, oh, this seems like cool to try, or I really want this. It's connected to who you want to be.
It's awesome. Awesome, man.
Now, when you start this process of skill building, I want you to know it's a journey and there might be some discomfort in different ways, but I want to show this picture because this is what I want you to feel as you're building it. I don't know how long this will take, right? But I want you to see this idea that maybe this is your skill set and you're trying to grow it. So yeah, you might be starting here, but I want you to be able to see yourself that you're moving into this. Now, what some people do is like you're in a box and you step out and it's almost like you're creating a new box, but the new box isn't a smaller box just like this. It's a bigger box. So every skill that you are working on, all the things that you're adding to you, you're growing your skill set. This is why I love skill building. I'm like, listen, why doesn't everybody want to put the hard work into building skills? You're getting a bigger box. You're learning more things. The things that you're going to be able to bring to the table in your business will blow your mind. But you don't even have to stop. It just keeps getting bigger, right? Yeah, this is going to take a lot of work. This will be frustrating at times. It's going to be the monotony you talked about. It's like, oh, I feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over, but you're building skills through habits, and now you have a bigger skill set. And then when you're running 100 million, 200 million, 500 million, $1 billion organization, you have the skill set that you need as a leader to be able to lead it. This is why I get fired up about it.
I love it.
I know it's hard work. I do. And I know as we go through this, there's going to be things that you don't want to do and it's going to feel unnatural. But I don't want you to stay here. And I don't want you just to leap to the big box. I want you to do hard work little by little, increasing the amount of skills that you have so that you're here one day.
I'm excited, man. And it's just interesting too. I can't wait to do this because I'm so like tied up in like, so what is he going to teach me? And am I going to improve strengths or am I going to improve weaknesses? Like I'm going to focus on the boxes. It's really interesting, right? And I'm just super excited to hop in, man.
Here we go. All right. So what we're going to do today, your homework is going to be the deep dive. So we can't deep dive here. That'll take a while. But I'm going to explain the assessment And then from that, I'm going to just get your blink thoughts on what you see from it. And then after we do that, then it's going to be, I'll give you your homework and then you'll be
Cool.
able to dive in. Okay? So we're going to look at this. I'll make sure people can see it as we go through. So 20 different skills. Both of these show the assessment. Now, you scored pretty high, which isn't, I'm not going to say that's good or bad because you're going to be able to assess are these scores accurate, and I'll show you how. But here's like a blink thought of the assessment. Now, what you want to know is this side really shows self leadership. This side really leans into servant leadership. So as you go up, you're going to see self leadership. As you go over here, you'll see servant leadership. As you go across, it shows different categories. So the first box really focuses on specialization. These two boxes really show collaborative leadership. These three show project leadership. These two, people leadership. And this one, executive leadership. So you're just kind of seeing different types of skills that you use in those areas. Also, you kind of see a progression of what you need as you kind of move up into self leadership. It starts with self discovery. You're getting to know yourself, some of the basics in leading yourself, all the way to self management, to managing yourself in the day to day, all the way to self growth, meaning you can take something from an idea all the way to achievement from scratch, right? And then on the side of servant leadership, it goes from just being able to connect with someone really well to motivating them to developing them. Okay. So those are the areas when it comes to this assessment. And over here, you'll see on the left, you'll see the scores that you have and your highest rated skills and your lowest rated skills. At the bottom, it kind of shows you your percentage. So if you got 0 to 59, you're probably not skilled in that area, right? 60 to 80, there's some skill there. And then 81 to 100 is mastery. Now, this is based upon how you answer the questions. If you answer that accurately or not, we don't know, but we will discover that. But this at least gives you a starting place of like, okay, I'm looking at these different leader skills, things that I am functioning in my day to day. All of these, you have the opportunity to operate it daily. Some things might be a little bit more natural, some things might be a little bit more unnatural, but at least gives you an idea of like, okay, here's where I'm at. So I want you to just give me some of your blink thoughts. You see this side, you see this side, you see your highest rated skills, you see your lowest rated skills, you see just a bigger view. What are you noticing about this? What maybe is surprising you? What feels right, what feels like, man, I might need to check in this again. I don't feel like this is right. And just let me hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So, highest rated skills: empowering others, action oriented, developing others, directing others, strategic agility. I think all those make sense. Lowest rated skills: active listening, work life balance, timely decision making, problem solving, goal and priority setting, learning on the fly. I think the only two in there that I would question is work life. I'm just kidding. Timely decision making, and then learning on the fly. I think all the other ones are spot on. I think learning on the fly, and I think it's more like I don't ever want to learn on the fly, but I'm also very comfortable in the chaos. Not because I want to be, but because I was trained to be in a weird way. And I do think too, and something I've thought a lot about as I'm working through my own like personal transition from leading a massive organization with staff vice presidents, directors, senior directors, managers, to now leading a very few people in a very delicate capacity. I think these lowest rated skills really concern me. And I think this is where when I had started out my career, I think I probably tended more towards being really good at these. And now I've kind of gotten away from that and gotten really good at empowering others, at being action oriented, developing talent. And I think there needs to be almost like a reconciliation of both. But it's interesting. I'm not surprised overall. I think it's pretty good. I think some of these questions too, like I keep thinking about where I selected most of the time versus always.
Sure.
And then I'm glad I was also like very honest too about like the active listening. As I say, like I try, and I think context really matters. Like actively listening, right? And then it's just other situations in my life where I would never in a million years write that as a skill. So I think that's something I'm excited to talk more about. And I think too, just get more intentional about. And it's funny because everything we keep talking about, whether it's about reflection, intentional improvement, but like I don't actively do things to be better at listening. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, am I maintaining eye contact with you? Am I hearing what you're saying? But also, I think like the concept of like tracking, and we talked a little bit about this where how could I ever know what I want to say before somebody's done speaking, right? That in and of itself is somewhat indicative that I'm not really listening to what they're saying. But I think that's one obviously I'm passionate about.
So good. There's a typo I just realized, or a mistake I made. Learn on the fly is supposed to be when you're top.
Okay,
So
cool.
that's 94. So that's supposed to be when you're top. And I think somewhere along the lines, it put it down here instead of here. So learn to
Okay.
fly is good. That's 94. That's actually I think your highest rated one, which makes sense. And then I think that needs to be replaced with empathy. But I might have been trying to do measure manager goals prior to that.
Gotcha. Yeah, and empathy, I think I was actually, now that I see it on there, I was almost surprised it wasn't on there, but it definitely should have been on there. And empathy is something it's weird, and like again, like no cameras in here, like it feels bad that I have to be so intentional about being empathetic. I think a lot of like my justification there is like I'm really focused on my journey a lot of the time, and I think my journey, my purpose, it gets back to like being selfish is selfless, depending on your perspective with those types of things. But I think where I'm focused on my actions, my tasks, what I'm doing, it's in an effort to help more people, whether those are people closer to me or actually more people in strategic ways. But I always feel a little bit bad when I'm bad at being empathetic. And again, I do have to try to be empathetic. And I think I see them as somewhat similar to compassion too.
100%. And I'm glad you're. This is good. I one thing I didn't want you to do is look at this and go straight to negative. Like, why am I not get
I
this?
did. I did.
Okay, but you took this assessment. It's just an assessment. It's just discovery. Remember, I want you to get here, and so we're slowly going to be working on some of these things that I'm telling you, man, it will be transformative in your leadership. The journey to get there is just awkward. It is awkward. That is the best way to put it because it doesn't mean you can stop your life and all of a sudden just start adding these skills. You're doing it as life is going when you already have certain ways of doing things. So imagine this. If you have a way of doing your day to day, and then we're going to come in and say, why don't you try adding this in here that really relates to prioritizing your day, which is you're kind of low there, you're going to resist it. You're going to want to do it the other way. But I want you to constantly ask yourself the question as you're going through this and you have your flow and rhythm of how you're doing things. Ask yourself, is there a better way? And if there is a better way, do I want that better way? Or do I want to stay in what I'm doing? It's working. I might be stressed out all the time, but it's working. But is there a better way? Okay, so I want you to be able to ask yourself, is there a better way? So one thing I want to do right now is just for fun, before I kind of walk you through what the homework will look like. I want you to look at the skills, and I would love to hear 1 to 2 where you're like, I want to work on this now. This is just blink thoughts. Then I want to hear 1 to 2 where you see maybe in the next 6 months, and then 1 to 2 a year plus from now.
Let's talk about this one right away because I'm like so caught up on it. It's one of my lowest. It's problem solving, and I don't know how to like even articulate this as thank God it's finally looking me in the face. how have I made it this far in my life and score so low on problem solving? I look at this as like something I just seem to kick the can on sometimes. I don't know like why I'm so hung up on it because clearly I've solved numerous problems in my life, but it's certainly not something like I take head on a lot. Like I have creative ways to solving problems versus just solving problems. I don't even know if that's what this is alluding to, but I'm super excited to work on that one right now. Um, I'm going to save active listening for 6 months because I think it's something that's probably going to take me a good amount of time. I think goal and priority setting, we're pulling on that thread, and I think I'm getting better at routines and habits. And I think that's something too that I need right now. I think it's just something that I want to make sure I document it and I'm intentionally moving forward with it. So along with active listening, you said now 6 months and a year?
Year plus.
Year plus. So active listening and empathy. Empathy. I think those two, and I'm on the journey, but I don't know if I'm being intentional enough. I think reflecting on when I wasn't empathetic or reflecting on when I could have listened more. And even like the act of knowing I'm actively listening. Like I should just be listening. Does that make sense? Like to some extent, like the fact that I'm still trying to actively listen in so many situations, it bothers me a little bit. Like I want to get myself to a point where it's just always happening if I'm in a conversation with somebody instead of having to be very intentional about it. And then a year plus, let's go with work-life balance. And I've kind of tried to architect my life with this one where, and along with staying present, I love working. And I don't know if it's time for like a quick anecdote, but I was in India and we were doing basically like a recruiting event, and one of my partners gets up in front of a whole auditorium of potential employees for this global in-house center we were starting, and he gets a question about what the work-life balance was. And I'm not kidding you, he's like gets up and there's literally probably like 2,000 people there. He's like, at XYZ, it's more life. There's no work because work is life. But anyways, bad example of like I know I have to put in a lot of hours and I want to take my life with me on that journey. But I do think there needs to be some separation. We talk about like being able to just turn it off. And even like some of the things I've been recently working on, like it's making it so it's even harder to go to sleep, because I'm not used to like distracting myself or like burning myself out to the point where I'm just completely exhausted. And like trying to go to bed at a good time to get a lot of sleep has my brain's like didn't get the memo. But anyways, I think work-life balance is something a year out. I probably should have put problem solving a little bit earlier too. But I don't know. That one's probably days. You're gonna fix that one in days, right? We'll get that one fixed in days. But yeah, work-life balance year plus.
This is good. So I noticed again, you went to your lowest scores, and that's okay. But I also want to say there is benefit in picking some things that are more groomed and you want to just sharpen it even more.
Mm.
So that's just something to think about. I just wanted to hear Blink Thoughts. We are seeing a theme since the first session of more on the negative side first, but I do want to challenge you that if you are so good at learning to fly, how do we tap into that more? And if we're thinking about like, okay, I know I'm good at empowering others, how do I even just bring that more? Because if you're going to bring somebody on who is going to be a videographer, you're going to have to empower them. So how do you even sharpen that even more to where that's like a no-brainer when they come in and they feel ready to go.
Yeah.
So I want you to be able to think about both. Okay, there's areas I need to work on, and there's areas that I'm already good at, but I want to strengthen. but I also want to know if you're actually good in these areas, right? So
Okay.
that's where this whole process starts. Also, everything I mentioned, that doesn't mean we're going to work on all of them. I would not give you 5 or 6 skills to work on at one time. We're just going to start with one, but we are going to start some of the basics. Like we will go in future sessions, basics on reflection and prioritization, because I want to start on the self leadership side, and so we'll discuss those two, and which is really in this area because I want to make sure they're really sharp, because you'll see a trend that these things support all of these. Like if you learn how to set really good goals and priorities, my goodness, it's gonna up your amount of your ability to be a strategic thinker. It's gonna up the type of decisions you make. It's going to give you the space and margin for caring for others, developing others. They all feed off of each other. So you want to make sure those are strong. And so we will get some of the basics there, and then we'll continue from there.
Awesome.
Okay. So I'm going to explain to you. This is, you can read through that, very simple, but here's a setup for every single skill. So for every single skill, and your homework is going to be, I want you to be able to go through the first 10 skills.
Okay.
Might take you a second, but really you're going to put your score, and I want you to self-assess yourself. Cool. If anything, maybe get some color markers, green, yellow, red, and I want you to be able to go through these things. And these are habits and strategies when it comes to the specific skills. And I want you to be able to go through these things and circle, am I above average in this area? Am I average in this area? Or am I below average in this area? And this will just give you some context to, if you scored really high, it'll help you step back and say, am I really this high? And if you are struggling with this, go over here, and this gives definitions to it, why you do it, how to cultivate it, and long term benefits. And so if you read these things and you're like, this is like a foreign language to me, then you probably aren't skilled in that specific area here, right? So if you see majority red, then I would say you're probably not skilled there. If you see majority yellow, okay, average performance. If you see majority green, you're above average performance. And I want you to be able to put that against the score you got, because that's going to give you an idea of how you were taking the test, maybe your thoughts as you were taking it. Like I said, the test was just discovery. It's just a starting point. This is where we do the real work.
Cool.
And this is where, as you read these things, I want you to kind of be like, I'm super interested in this, or I can see how this can connect to who I want to be, and maybe I need to work on this. So you're going to go through the first 10 because they're all on self leadership. And this will just kind of give you an idea. And then you'll say, like, all right, well, what are my strengths? What are my growth opportunities? And do I want to work on this? And I think your mindset might change a little bit as you go through this. And then what I want to be able to do for next time is just to hear your thoughts of the first 10 skills.
Cool.
And kind of see where you're at. Because we won't jump in right away to work on it, but at least give an idea of, okay, here's how I'm processing through these leader skills that I have.
Awesome, man.
Questions around this? Thoughts around this?
So on some of this stuff too, just like so, like growth opportunities, would I select just like a habit and mindset?
Yeah, so
Ish.
growth opportunities. It's almost like if you're like,
And so like
okay,
strengths,
asking for feedback consistently. Let's say that's a growth
these are
opportunity.
the same things, right?
Yeah, same thing.
Awesome. Okay.
So if you look at one of these and you need, like, okay, know what I'm feeling, then you can go over here and just kind of get some context.
Awesome.
And so that's for every skill that you go through.
Wow, man. Did you put this whole thing together?
Yes, sir.
I'm super excited, man, because I do think, this is what's so hard about this stuff sometimes is like self-awareness. Yeah, sure. What is it? Reflect, sit in silence, ask for feedback. Like that's what it is. I love this, man. I'm excited to work on this.
It's good. So also, as you think about it this way. Remember, there is no skill building without habit building. So the things that you're seeing are ways that self awareness is cultivated, ways that it's expressed in your day to day. So when you're thinking about it, you find little ways like, man, I don't really sit in silence. Once I know you do, right? But someone's like, I don't really sit in silence. Well, that's a way that as you start working on it, let's say you chose self awareness, that would probably be one of the things that you actually do. So every skill that you work on, there might be one or two things that you actually start doing, and we track and we
Awesome.
hammer it.
I run in silence.
Run in silence. Hey, I like it.
Awesome, man.
Cool.